Welcome to the Trump Breaking News Network, your daily source for up-to-the-minute Trump news. Join us today and every day. Here's today's news.
This is TBNN.
Developing. U.S. just fired 50 Tomahawk missiles at Syrian military base, but why? By Arjun Wali. Just hours ago the U.S. launched approximately 50 Tomahawk missiles against a Syrian military base near Homs after President Donald Trump ordered the strikes in response for the chemical attacks in Idlib. Again, if these chemical attacks had anything to do with the United States, or the global cabal that controls the United States and its allies, article linked here, it raises some very serious questions, as have many so-called attacks where the blame lies on someone who could be completely innocent. U.S. ships currently stationed in the Mediterranean Sea also reportedly launched a strike on Syria's Shayrat air base on Thursday night local time. What we know so far: U.S. missiles struck Shayrat's airfields, aircraft hangar, and fuel tankers. Destroyed fuel tankers caused several explosions and a large fire that has not been put out yet. At least 15 fighter jets have been damaged or destroyed. One fighter pilot was killed, several others wounded. Russians were present at the airbase when it was attacked. According to U.S. President Donald Trump, on Tuesday, Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad launched a horrible chemical weapons attack on innocent civilians. Using a deadly nerve agent, Assad choked out the lives of helpless men, women and children. It was a slow and brutal death for so many. Even beautiful babies were cruelly murdered in this very barbaric attack. Source: there is a saying that reveals Democrats and Republicans as two wings of the same bird, and the flight path doesn't change. One fact that remains to be acknowledged is the fact that America has been taken over by some sort of secret government. Numerous presidents and politicians have voiced this concern over the decades. You can see some examples here. When it comes to the statement above, it bears an unfortunate similarity to those of Obama, Bush, Clinton and those before. There is a terror war industry that thrives off creating conflict, and then proposing the solution. In this case, it is ISIS causing problems, so the United States and their allies, in the eyes of the mainstream, must enter into the region in order to restore freedom. Yet at the same time, the U.S. is funding ISIS. Is this another example of a country takeover? Time will tell as this unfolds, but it's important we consider the deeper options. A conscious note. Before we continue on with further development on this story, it's important to consider and watch our perceptions, reactions and what we put out there when it comes to these unfoldments. We might want to move into fear, worry, lose hope about our world and so forth. We may want to judge actions, get angry online and aggressively write about things. Ask, how does this serve? By moving into these emotional states of being we learn what triggers we have, but we also are presented with an opportunity to move through them. After all, what plays out in our world is a reflection of humanity as a whole, and by doing our part to shift our own selves and perspectives within, we begin to pull power and energy out of needing to experience things like war on this planet. So what can we do? Raise awareness about these types of stories from a place of peace and new perspective. Focus on shifting our own thoughts, feelings and emotions from within and work towards maintaining peace within ourselves, and we give other permission to, and we can permeate that energy outwards. This has an incredible impact on the world around us and yet still gives us the opportunity to do what we can to help create change. Raising awareness from a peaceful place versus an angry one is immensely more powerful and works to create more peace versus more anger. We're going through a transitionary time, we must remember this. Humanity's challenges and dark night of the soul are playing out, and it's up to us to process it and move through it in new ways. More false flags? What we are looking at here could be another case of false flag terrorism. An event carried out and or perpetuated by the U.S. government and their allies in order to justify military intervention. Evolve your inbox and stay conscious daily. Inspiration and all our best content, straight to your inbox. First name. Email address. Get the best. We recently published an article titled, "Another Syrian chemical weapons attack just happened," The final false flag before a full U.S. intervention? That goes into more detail and elaborates a little more on that. The airfield was supposedly targeted after the U.S. and their allies blamed the Syrian military for the chemical incident in Idlib. Up to 86 people, including 26 children, are alleged to have been killed. Again, several Western states have immediately pinned the blame on Assad's forces, while Russia said Syrian jets bombed a warehouse where chemical weapons were being produced. In the midst of all this blame, we must remember that that's what governments and their allies do. From the opposite perspective, here's a quote from Michel Chossudovsky, an award-winning author, professor of economics, emeritus, at the University of Ottawa, to balance out viewpoints. We are dealing with a criminal undertaking at a global level, and there is an ongoing war. It is led by the United States. It may be carried out by a number of proxy countries, which are obeying orders from Washington. The global war on terrorism is a U.S. undertaking, which is fake. It's based on fake premises. It tells us that somehow America and the Western world are going after a fictitious enemy, the Islamic State, when in fact the Islamic State is fully supported and financed by the Western military alliance and America's allies in the Persian Gulf. They say Muslims are terrorists, but it just so happens that terrorists are made in America. They're not the product of Muslim society, and that should be abundantly clear to everyone on this floor. The global war on terrorism is a fabrication, a big lie and a crime against humanity. Source. It's important to critically think about these issues, look at opinions as well as documents and research to make our conclusions. We will continue to do that here as a conscious news source covering unfolding stories like this. The fact that, for example, 4-star General Wesley Clark, who was the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe of NATO from 1997 to 2000, has spoken out about this subject saying that U.S. had plans to invade countries in the Middle East, including Syria, for no justified reason at all is telling enough for us to question the constant narrative of the mainstream media. He offered the sentiments of some within the American military, that they have a good military and that they can take down governments. He spoke of a memo that described how the U.S. had plans to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq, and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off, Iran. Source. Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton. Does it really matter? What's confusing here is that Trump was vilified by the media, and that he clearly has a different view and stance than those of many who are in positions of great power. He has been calling out the corporations that jeopardize our health, has made some intriguing comments about 9/11 and more. That being said, some of his picks and his support for a strong, beefed-up military follows in the core tradition of those who held the presidency before him. At the end of the day, let's remember what President Woodrow Wilson told us. Some of the biggest men in the United States, in the field of commerce and manufacture, are afraid of somebody, are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they had better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. Source. One last one to hammer the point I'm trying to make home. Theodore Roosevelt, also former President of the United States. Political parties exist to secure responsible government and to execute the will of the people. From these great tasks both of the old parties have turned aside. Instead of instruments to promote the general welfare, they have become the tools of corrupt interests which use them impartially to serve their selfish purposes. Behind the ostensible government sits enthroned an invisible government, owing no allegiance and acknowledging no responsibility to the people. To destroy this invisible government, to dissolve the unholy alliance between corrupt business and corrupt politics is the first task of the statesmanship of the day. Source. JFK alluded to the same thing. It seems some presidents have no choice but to play by their rules, and it's hard to see that anyone can ever be put in that position without being and agreeing with the cabal, to some extent, but maybe not? It's hard to say. But let's see what unfolds. Subscribe here to continue hearing alternative and conscious perspectives on what's unfolding in our world.
That's the news. Join us here every day. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell. See you next time.
This is TBNN.